Jennifer Bryan, PhD, defines heteronormativity as the binary view of gender and sexuality that assumes and privileges heterosexuality in individuals, couples, and families, and supports traditional masculine and feminine gender roles and expression. It is the cultural and social management of gender and sexuality, and is promoted and maintained by individuals and institutions.
We live in a heterosexual oriented society, and that society is the dominant society. And so the ideology of that society is that heterosexuality is the only normal way of being in the world.
Heteronormativity pervades every aspect of modern culture, as it is reinforced through media, politics, traditions, gender norms, and more. The omnipresence of heteronormative values is so deeply ingrained in the fabric of society that it forms part of the foundational values of the current social structure. However, this issue has only become a point of contention in recent years due to the increasing visibility and activism of the LGBTQ+ community. Because heteronormativity has remained such a driving force behind the traditions and social structure of modern society, it has become a norm with which the majority of individuals do not have any issues. However, these values prove to be particularly problematic for the 4.5% of people in America who make up the LGBTQ+ community. With such a staggering amount of people included within this community, it is extremely important to consider the toll such a society takes upon these individuals. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention states that some of the most critical developmental stages in an individual's life occur throughout infancy, childhood, and adolescence. It is during these stages of life that people are conditioned through a socialization process which aims to seamlessly integrate each individual into society. One of the most influential aspects of the socialization process of youth is education, as it forms the basis of intellectual stimulation and aims to provide an environment in which children and teens may develop cognitive abilities. The sheer magnitude of education's influence upon an individual's development prompts the necessity for an examination of the ways in which heteronormativity may affect queer youth within the education system. While I have personally noticed and identified many ways in which heteronormativity appears and is reinforced through education, I was curious as to the perspectives of other queer individuals in regard to their observations of the existence of these values within the education system. As a result, I proposed the following question to a few individuals. How have you observed heteronormativity manifesting itself within education and the school system?
I think that in classes and stuff, we don't really talk about the LGBT community as much. It's more straight people this, straight people that. In health class, we don't go over homosexual sex. It's all like geared toward straight people. So I feel like that's kind of damaging to LGBT youth.
I have seen heteronormativity manifested in activities that we've done inside the classroom. I've was asked to participate in different skits or plays where I was only given options of playing male roles. In the movies and the books that we are required to read in certain curriculums, I've never seen or read or watched about same-sex relationships or plot lines or love between same-sex couples. I also see it manifesting in the awards and traditions that we do or still celebrate in high schools, prom king, queen, homecoming king, queen, etc., etc.
I think heteronormativity manifests itself in almost every aspect of society at large, which then makes it, a huge part of our education system. I mean, even to the point of like teachers saying things like, "Hey guys, pay attention." That word saying guys, and this is getting into this idea of like transnormative or like cisnormativity and stuff like that too, but I think that it's kind of an all umbrella term. But like the language that we as teachers use definitely perpetuates the system of heteronormativity and assumes that a cisgender heterosexual person is the student that you're going to be teaching. And I think that's where we're doing a huge disservice to the growing LGBTQ community, because we can't assume that everyone is going to identify as this specific way.
The integration of heteronormative traditions within the education system carries significant impacts that may negatively harm and influence LGBTQ+ youth. There are a variety of ways in which queer youth may be affected by the school environment. They may be put in physical danger, as LGBT youth are physically assaulted, kicked, or shoved at 2 times the rate of their peers. They may also have a fear of being open and honest about their identity, as 26% of LGBT youth report that their biggest problems are trouble at school with bullying, as well as having a fear of being out. As a result, only around 64% of LGBT youth are out to their classmates at school. This may be due to the fact that 92% of LGBT youth report hearing negative messages about being queer at school and amongst peers. There are also many more severe ways in which LGBT youth may be affected by a heteronormative school environment, as it can take a toll on the mental health of these individuals. For instance, only 37% of LGBT youth report being happy, while 67% of non-LGBT youth say that they are happy. Also, gay, lesbian, and bisexual youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual counterparts. After gaining a better perspective of the big picture in regard to the ways in which LGBTQ+ youth are affected by a heteronormative school environment, I decided to reach out to some openly LGBT individuals about their own experience within the school system to see how individuals may be specifically affected or influenced.
So from freshman to sophomore and like most of junior year, like I wasn't out. So I did my best to like try and act or what I thought was as straight as possible. And then like junior year, like end of junior year, like when I came out and stuff like that, I did more for myself. I tried to be who I was and stuff like that. But I still like in certain situations I'll act like more straight than like I would in other situations, I feel like. And it isn't like something I like consciously do. Like it's like not something that like I'm like, oh, okay, like I can dance straight. But like in certain, like when I'm with like most of my like straight guy friends, like I feel like I'll act differently than I am when I'm with like my friends that are girls.
I am a gay male, and growing up in high school and school in general, I found that heteronormativity really excluded me from a lot of practices, activities, events, etc., whether it be purposeful or even subconsciously.
So from since I was younger, I've always questioned my sexual identity, and I knew that I was still attracted to men, but I was feeling like I was also attracted to women as well. And as I grew older, I kind of understood that I was bisexual, but I never like had a public coming out, or I didn't really tell anybody or make it this big thing. I just kind of like let it happen. And I think in my heart I wanted to, and I wanted to have like a celebration about it and just like be happy and just let everyone know. And I just wanted to be myself. But I think because I grew up in a school where it was very like heteronormative focused and everyone was straight and all my friends were straight, I didn't really have that opportunity. So I think that it prevented me from being who I wanted to be publicly, and not from like the people who I'm closest with know that, and I can like talk about it amongst them. But overall, I don't really have the chance to be honest with everyone.
So, how can these consequences of heteronormativity in the education system be alleviated? Is there a solution to this persistent issue that affects a large portion of America's youth? As it turns out, there are many ways in which the power of heteronormative values may be combated within education. States may enact anti-bullying and non-discrimination laws to help protect LGBTQ+ students from facing harassment, bullying, discrimination, and more. However, it is unfortunate that only 19 states have enacted anti-bullying laws, and only 13 states and the District of Columbia have enacted non-discrimination laws within the school system. In order to achieve ubiquitous improvement in the inclusion and equal treatment of queer youth, it is vital that these laws are put in place around the nation. It is also important to tackle this issue within the classroom, as there are many tactics that teachers may employ in order to ensure the inclusion and safety of LGBTQ+ individuals. A safe environment may be established by teachers through outward support and recognition of LGBTQ+ students, as well as incorporating resources and lessons that provide more visibility and representation for the queer community. Furthermore, creating a free and open dialogue between students and teachers about queer issues and support may provide a more effective support system for LGBTQ+ individuals seeking help or guidance. On the school level, various programs that support gender and sexuality diversity within education may be championed and promoted by the administration in order to raise awareness of queer issues. For example, a gay straight alliance club may be created for LGBTQ students to have an outlet through which they may seek refuge and interact with others of diverse gender identities and sexualities.
I think it goes down to the educators themselves educating themselves, if that makes sense. And not being afraid to ask questions and not being afraid to say something that might be uncomfortable for you or for another person. My huge philosophy is that if you don't know, ask. Because if you don't know and you don't ask, what is that? Ignorance. And I have no tolerance for ignorance. So I think that it really does all start with education. And I think that as public educators, we are public servants. And in my mind, a public servant cannot refuse service to anyone that they are serving. So in that sense, an educator can't refuse to teach, if this is making sense, a student from a queer background, or again, not acknowledge that background because of a lack of their own knowledge. So I think before even like measures or steps to increase awareness or to decrease heteronormativity in the classroom, before any of that discussion has to happen, I think that you need almost like a mass education of teachers. And I think that I've been fortunate enough to have some opportunity to do that here, but that is a very school-specific thing. There, as far as I know in Wake County, haven't been any like specific initiatives focusing on the LGBTQ community. There is this big idea of equity now, which the community is lumped into that, but I think that if we were to create some sort of initiative for that, then to educate, again, teachers, that would just kind of bring an overall awareness to the teachers themselves and make them, again, more conscious of their language. So I do think that at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to the language that's being used itself.
Heteronormativity is an issue that has existed within education throughout history and will continue to be a topic of contention until it is fully addressed and actively prevented. While a heteronormative school environment may prove to be harmful and unsafe for LGBTQ students, teachers and schools may work to promote a tolerant and inclusive space for queer youth to thrive. Visibility and education about queer problems are the most important factors in diminishing this issue because with these elements in effect, the education system may become more inclusive of all people regardless of gender or sexual orientation.